That's so funny. I had sent that message so long ago,
Really? Is it
but my
recording?
internet didn't let me. Yeah, no, it's recording now.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so then, ooh, oh no. Oh, it's not letting me go back. Okay, I don't know that much about expenditures. I'm gonna be real. Anyways, though, taxes are a big thing, and then we have some federal and state aid coming in. So our operating budget, this is our day-to-day thing. We have contractual services. So that's anyone we partner with at all, whether that's telecommunications, utilities, if it's a developer for a building or something like that, like for our renovations, those types of things. There's current charges. That's like our health insurance, um, personnel services. That's all of the employees. That's all of uh the like our overtime benefits, employing city government. Um, Supplies and materials and equipment, those are the general like kind of overhead costs of keeping all of the departments running. Then we have other costs that are like employee pensions and then fixed costs. Those are like pension schedules, debt service. That's what we know is going to be spent, and we don't have to estimate like we do for the rest of the operating budget. It really is kind of piecework and guessing is a lot of it. And okay, this is how much we spent this past year. What do we need to keep it going? Where are there lapses? Or like, or where's there, like, for example, last year for FY25, the council went through and looked at all of the seats that or jobs that weren't filled, so then that money was not being used. Like from that's from the personnel services category, and figured out where they could make budget amendments to move that money. So a lot of it is our best guess, but the fixed costs have a specific price tag that we know for sure is going to be that cost. And then on the link down on the right that Kiara added, you guys all have access to this, is the full operating budget for each department. And as each department comes in for their hearings, that's where we get to dive into the line items that they have. And then this is operating revenue and expenditures. Oh, so this is a closer look at those that green and purple vertical graphs that we had before. This is a closer one. So as we can see, we're expecting a little more of revenue coming in for FY26 and FY25. Um, and you can see for FY23 and FY24 that light blue color is the total revenues, and the darker blue color is the total expenditures. And so that's been, if you as you can see, we've actually stayed within budget the past 2 years. FY25, since we're still in the middle of it, we don't know what those numbers are, and obviously FY26 is projected. But City has been doing very well of keeping within budget every year. Um, oh, oh, I clicked on something. Well, anyways, this is what the website looks like for the FY26 operating budget. That's uh it's giving us like our overall spending. That's the graph that we just saw. And the great thing about all of these graphs that are on the Boston .gov website is that you can actually hover over their graphs, so then you can see them in more detail. Um, but there's a bunch of stuff if you want to dive deep into it, and then they have these at the bottom. So if you want to go into the data, if you want to look at the full capital plan, all of that is in there. And let's see, can I get back? Okay. Okay, so short-term team priorities. Kiara, is this? Oh, I understand. For our short-term team here within our task force. Okay, great. So the public works and transportation, right? This is doing a lot with our street safety that we've been talking about, our intersections and all of that. Um, if you're looking at the graphs, you can see that personnel and contractual services take up the grand majority of all of this spending. Um, I don't know why it keeps doing that. I'm so sorry, everyone.
It might be easier to click with the arrow on your keyboard instead of clicking through it because then you might click on a link.
I know it wasn't letting me do that at some point, but maybe then my space bar will. Okay, so then the long-term team priorities. We have the Office of Food Justice, so like Counselor Mejia was saying, is like with food insecurity and things like that. That's somewhere where we can attack these things short term and long term, and then the mayor's office of housing. Nope, it's not letting me use my arrows. Okay. So then the capital budget, these are our long-term projects. Um, as you can see, we have 4.4-ish billion dollars going towards this, and there's 390 projects that fall under this 5-year plan. Key areas of investment is BPS, parks, libraries, community centers and pools, coastal resilience, and streets. So this is for our long-term planning for the city and to make sure that we have the facilities and green spaces and public spaces that we need to support our city. Um, BPS, it has that asterisk next to it because BPS is so large that it's a quasi-governmental agency, which means that it does have a little more, I wouldn't say autonomy, but it has its own structure to it in a way that a regular department doesn't. And so the school committee approved BPS's first round of budgets on March 26th. And so uh and it seems like there are more about this on the resource slide and how that weird division works. And then also there's the capital projects dashboard. And so then you can look at each of the projects, and so that you can track them, especially this is helpful for, like if there's something happening in your area. So you can see when we first click on it, we see all 390 of uh our projects that we have in the city. But maybe let's look through this. Can someone give me like a department that we're interested in seeing what they're doing? Who do we want to look at?
Public Works.
Public Works? Okay, great. So the Public Works Department. Okay, so we can now see that there's 59 projects that Public Works uh is involved in, and that $1 billion will be going towards that. If we're looking closer, let's pick this right here. Okay, so like when we click on the dot, we can see that there's a Green Routes to School uh effort that's happening here in Roxbury. We can see the budget for it. And that's in Public Works Department. Right now it's under design. This is specifically, we're looking at the Higgins Lewis K through 8 school. And then they give their little description of it, uh, subcategories, the project numbers, and how much has been expended, and a link that is right now empty, but hopefully once the project actually starts, we would see that here. We can see that we have, okay, the Shawmut Avenue Bridge. So this is something else that the Public Works Department is working on. It's $1.1 million. Um, the status is to be scheduled. Uh, so what that seems to be is that, okay, we've had the plan set out now, but now we just need to know when we're going to go do this work and to plan the actual construction of it. And then, subcategories, bridges, we haven't expended the money yet. No link is on there yet. Then we can see over here we have another bridge project. We have lots of bridges. Lots of bridges, which is great. So that's like in Eastie and Charlestown, um, primarily bridges. Also all of these, yeah, connecting downtown and South Boston over here. Um, let's see, in Roslindale, we have another bridge. So it seems like looking around, it's a bridge party for Public Works for their capital projects, which isn't surprising. Um, But yeah, that's just a good idea. Schools are a big part of this too, like building facilities. And that's the primary part of the BPS. Uh, capital planning expenditures, obviously. Is school facilities specifically. So Kiara's going. Yes.
Just really quick on the BPS note, the reason why there was an asterisk is just as you said, Beatrix, that is other the B2, all of oh my God, I think I'm gonna put it in the chat because I'm freezing up again.
Yeah, we're hearing like bits and pieces of it. Um, so looking at like the actual uh like a breakdown of more projects, looking at the short-term team priorities, we can see how much they're planning on what has been expended through FY 2024 is that dark blue. So if you look at this Boylston Street sidewalks bar, the second one from the top, we can see that darker blue is what has been expended already on that project. And then we can see that lighter blue is what we plan to expend on it. So Boylston Street sidewalks are in progress right now. Whereas for the sidewalk and ramp reconstruction, we see that for FY 25 through 27, all of that is planned. All the Chinatown sidewalk improvements is planned. Um, and then we can see on the so those are like our big sidewalks. For the streets, we have a lot more smaller bars. We could see that roadway reconstruction resurfacing is far above any of the other spending because obviously that takes more to redo a road rather than just a sidewalk. But then we can also see all of the different roadways and neighborhood areas that are getting their neighborhood streets re-upped. For the long-term team priorities, looking at the mayor's office of housing, again, there's this like darker blue color, what's been spent through FY 24, and then the total projected. So we can see that BHA Charlestown, the Mildred Haley C. Haley Preservation, the Mildred C. Haley Phase 1 redevelopment, all of that's already been started and we've started to expend towards those things. Whereas with like the BHA retrofit, the Mary Ellen McCormick redevelopment, elevator modernization, and then Dudley Street Public Plaza and Parker Street retaining wall, those things are planned, but we haven't started yet. But a lot of their capital projects are about their properties under the Office of Housing with all the BHA facilities. And then the Public Health Commission, we can see again that they have started expending towards the Long Island facility preservation, and that also is the biggest project that they're projecting. And then there are all those smaller budgets as well that they're planning on using. And then, okay, questions. I will try my best to answer. Sorry everyone about this. I'm gonna click through the rest of the slides and then we'll do questions when I stop sharing so Kiara can hopefully help answer those. But just looking at this, the additional resources, and again, you have access to these slides, is there's all the past and current budgets websites, but then the full budget documents, they can get very in depth. If you want it, it will be out there. We at the council get giant like budget books that are like multiple inches, like spiral bound. Um, and the education budget has its own budget too that you can dive into. And then the chair of Way means Councilor Brian Worrell, the counselor for District 4. He recently sent a letter to Mayor Wu on the council's budget priorities. And so in that he really emphasized, oh, Kiara was just saying the full budget is 1,205 pages. So it's a lot.
And
But
it is, and you know what, it's a lot, and it's hard to digest because it's information overload, and it feels like they just threw a fire hose at us. But I want everyone to know, and to remain incredibly optimistic, because our office, on a short-term basis, brought on Counselor Yancey. I don't know if any of you all even remember him, but he was the former um, chair of the post audit committee, and anything that deals with finances, he understands the city budget, and he worked as a city councilor for 32 years. So we pulled him out of retirement to help us better prepare for the budget season and so that we can maximize on our time and in our questions. But if there are any questions that you all have that you'd like for me to bring to the chamber, this is your opportunity to send Kiara a note. And what the team does is they'll incorporate whatever questions we get from community, because I'm always saying, I'm not here to, I speak on your behalf, literally. And so if there are specific things that you want me to highlight or questions that you want me to propose within whatever content area that you want us to do, make sure you send it to Kiara, and then the team will incorporate those questions into my prep document. That's an invitation for you all to meaningfully engage in ways that, you know, your voice is being amplified.
Yeah, and that can be a now thing, but that is also an ongoing thing, as you um come up with questions or whatever, feel free to email them to Kiara. You can CC me. You can email them to the counselor, but that, no pressure to come up with all the questions right this second. And I saw Dee Dee's question about the budget being in the council. Um, and Kiara was saying that she'll send out the list of the budget hearings. What has happened right now, just as an overview of what the budget actually looks like, is that the mayor has sent her proposed budget. Right now, the council is going through uh all of its hearings, and after that, the counselors are going to have multiple working sessions likely to talk about the amendments that they want to make to the budget.
Yeah,
And
and I'll just say really quick, just so that a key point. And sorry, I'm not on
go ahead.
camera because I'm in transit, so I don't have any verbal cues here. But wanted to just let you know that the Ways and Means chair has signaled that we'll probably have 100 hours worth of hearings. Um, and so it is a long, drawn out process, but I'm going to be as transparent as I know how to be, and I think you would appreciate that. Is that a lot of these things oftentimes get negotiated out behind the scenes, just so you all know. I like people to know those things, because what happens is that city councilors usually are trying to vet, their issues and their concerns, and then there's a lot of wheeling and dealing that happens behind the scenes. So don't get too excited that what you see on during the deliberation process sometimes is not really what's happening behind the scenes. I just hate that part of the budget process, because it's not transparent, and what it does, it undermines democracy, in my personal humble opinion, which is one of the reasons why I really do appreciate participatory budget, because it really gives the people the power, even if it's only a small chunk of change. We're trying to increase that, but it really puts you all in the driver's seat when it comes to the finances of the city.
Yeah, and thank you for highlighting that, because it is such a convoluted process, and it's so complex, and like Kiara was saying, like, this is a 1,200-page document, and so it's the system isn't meant for community to deeply engage with. And that's something that is important to know as we attempt to engage in it. Um, and that's why, we want your questions. So please, if you have any, send them to us, because we do want to ask those questions, right? And we do believe that departments do need to answer the things that the people want to know. Um, so and there is the performative debate, and then there's the behind the scenes debate. Um, but we will have lots of hearings, and the hearings are typically organized by department, so that those representatives and people who work in those departments and have that expertise can come and speak to us about those things. So early June, the council will pass its first budget with some amendments. and then it goes to the mayor. The mayor can either, there's three options. She can either accept the full budget as the council had amended it, and then great, we're done. Everyone's happy. Yay, budget season's done early. That I highly doubt that would happen. That is not typically how things work. Um, the other end of that spectrum is that the mayor can do a complete veto and veto every single amendment that the council put forward, which means that then it goes back to the original version that the mayor had. And then the third in the middle option is that the mayor may accept some of the amendments, but not all of the amendments. So accept some and veto others. After this first round of the mayor accepting, vetoing, or doing a combo of it, most likely a combo, is then the council goes back for a second round of debates on their amendments, trying to figure out, continue to negotiate. If they need to hold additional hearings, they will hold additional public testimony. They probably will do that to know what really are the top priorities of the people. And then after that, it will go, then the council is going to vote on it again. And so, uh, since it's a really interesting case because the second round of votes that the council's doing is really attempting to veto the mayor's veto. So which is a funny way to put it, but that's really what's happening. And so then in that case, because the mayor's made that final decision, quote unquote, vetoing it, for the council to override a veto, we need 9 out of 13 votes. So our office actually, for the very first time in history, since 2021, or I guess FY 2022, so the first time that was actually in practice, but we put a vote to do a full override of the mayor's veto on the floor on the council. It got 7 votes, which is the majority, but was not enough to get that full override passed. But th that was a really important moment for our office to make sure that we fought for a full vote to be put on the floor to actually attempt to bring all priorities to fruition. Um, and then it ended up being that we had to do partial overrides. So then in packages, some amendments bundled together, and then line by line is how it went last year. If you heard anything about a 12.5 hour marathon meeting, that's what all of that was about. Um, are there any questions about the budget and or the budget process? I probably know more about the process. Kiara knows more about the FY 26 budget. I know that was a really long and convoluted explanation. It's very complicated. So let us know any questions that are remaining. And Kiara, I don't know if there's anything that I left out, but please feel free to step in.
No, you did a great job. Thank you so much. I wanted to point out that in the document, the last, my gosh, I'm forgetting my words. The last slide in the document, I mean, in the slideshow, with the one with all the resources, most, if not all of those links, I believe, come from the full budget document. But for example, with the education one or like the capital budget or the operating budget, those are like smaller documents, but all of that is part of the full budget. It's just hard to, when you're copying a link, to copy a specific page so that you all land on the same page. But it's also divided up by sub documents and subsections. So if you're interested in looking at just the capital budget, then you can click on just the capital budget link on the slide. If not, you can click through the full document and you'll get all 1,200 of them, but that might be a little overwhelming. It's completely up to you guys, but if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. And if like you have a question after the meeting or like in a week or something, my emails are open. Y'all can email me and I can pass it on to the policy team if I can't answer it. But yeah, just please let us know and feel free to interrupt. again, I don't take it personal. Um, but yeah, there seems to be no questions, which in that case, I think we can move on to the rest of the meeting. It won't be too long, so we won't be here overtime, guys. But now that you all know a little more about what the budget is like, um, and how it works, Beatrix, would you be able to share the other slides?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm watching everything on my computer and then I'm talking out of my phone.
Look at you out here doing all of the IT stuff. Um, are we on current event? Oh, I see where you are. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And let's hopefully you will be able to speak.
I really hope so. I'm so sorry, guys. Um, but yeah, so just like to connect it back to what um has been happening lately, I decided to put in like two little articles for each of the um, teams, like what each team has been focusing on. So, in case you didn't know, there was a truck that crashed into a sidewalk in Chinatown. There were 6 people injured, and even though I think it's still under investigation, but at the moment, Commissioner Cox did say that it was an accident. It's still important to think about what ways can this be avoided because it was a truck that seemed to have lost control and then crashed and you 6 people were hurt, and one person being hurt is too many, so definitely something to think about, especially since this happened around noon on a weekday in Chinatown. Like there's people walking in and out all the time and walking the sidewalk. So this was definitely something that when I heard that it happened, I was like, oh, the short term team, they've been discussing this and how to protect people who are walking the sidewalks or just out and about. So this is something to keep in mind that even though this truck didn't want to, no one wants to crash into a sidewalk, I'd hope. This is something to think about with how we can. I'm sorry, like my Zoom just quit, but I'm here. Um, just how we can prevent this from happening in the future. And then Beatrice, if you wouldn't mind going to the other slide. Thank you. Then this one is a little more good news. The Fairlawn Estates in Mattapan. So I believe it was not too long ago. It might have been end of March or beginning of April. There was a mayor who had announced that um, this housing complex in Mattapan had come to a deal that would keep it affordable for all of its residents. So there's now 347 units that are affordable, and people like Annie Gordon, who's in the picture, don't have to move out of their houses just because they can't afford rent. So this was pretty big, but also it got me thinking, how else can we on this task force, what can we do to make sure that this continues to happen and to protect tenants throughout the city? Uh, so next slide, please. Thank you. And then team updates. So the short-term team, I've just taken a couple of notes as to what you all have been talking about. I believe that I did put in the chat earlier a couple of the document with the notes, so you all can look through that and see the notes that I've taken from each of the teams. And so if you want to dive into it a little more, but aren't able to watch a 1.5 hour meeting, completely understand. You can look through those notes, and um, I will be taking notes of this meeting as well, so that anyone who missed it, or if you're here and you still want to refresh your mind, it's there. But these are like the main points that were brought up. So each district within the Boston Police Department, because I do want to mention the Boston Police Department does have different district lines than the city council does. So just because you live in, like for example, I live in District 5, but that doesn't mean that my but my I should be a little more specific. I live in District 5 in Rosendale, but my district, when it comes to the BPD, is in West Roxbury because Rosendale doesn't have their own. So just think about it like that. It doesn't always match up with your council district. But each district does have an auto investigator and they can identify who might have caused an accident or help out with any problematic areas and also help with enforcement. So I believe the detective that Arosa mentioned that if someone had come close to hitting you or hitting someone else, even if it wasn't at that same moment, even if it's like a few days later, you can still contact this investigator and they can look into it and try to find and send a fine over to the person who might have caused that accident. So it's not just limited to like at the moment. Um, but one of the main things that kept on coming up throughout the meeting was consistency and messaging is very much needed to make sure that um to make sure that no one is operating recklessly and negligently. So the short-term team had discussed creating some sort of pamphlet, and this pamphlet would be more of an educational resource so that people who weren't as who didn't have as much information about the laws and like the ordinances in the city of Boston, they have access to that information, and it's all just in one little pamphlet, one document, and they can look back to it and know that when they're out in the streets, they need to be following certain rules. And then it also talked about boom cars and impromptu parties and just the procedure that police officers have when they respond to calls about boom cars or impromptu parties. They also mentioned that automated enforcement is very helpful to police officers and encourages voluntary compliance. So, yeah, as discussed, the pamphlet was one of the solutions. Um, the task force can work a little more, just like as you said, Aaron, just focus in a little more on these intersections and figure out solutions that can work for it. And thank you again, Counselor, for bringing that up, and Rosemary as well. If you have any pictures or are able to take any pictures or short videos of these intersections, and just like so that we can all see how it looks like from the ground and not just bird's eye view, if you can, please do. I'll be creating a folder so you all can dump that in. Um, and yeah, you could just send me that over or drop it right into that folder. So
So
I think we can move on. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that because it was a I don't know if anybody follows me, you know that I like to make sure that we also give you all some time to talk because we did a lot of talking to y'all, and I just want to just make sure that we have 10 more minutes left and then our time together. Really would love to open it up to hear your reflections, um, and any call to action that you'd like for us to consider and kind of like closing things out hearing from y'all because after all you are the task force, you are the boss of all of us, so want to make sure that we give you a little bit of time in our time together to talk about what it's on your heart or mind or anything that you heard here tonight that you want to unpack a little bit further.
Hi, it's Christina Busa. Um, at the last meeting for the short term, we were talking about, Aaron was talking about the intersections, and I was suggesting perhaps a non-official force that could be present in some of these places that might make people think twice about breaking the rules. And I know that that might be a difficult project to create, and finding the people to do that that would be appropriate for that. But that was something we talked about. I continue to monitor the neighborhood, the North End in particular, for situations that I could bring in front of departments that are running, for instance, the Greenway. I spoke with and wrote to Chris Cook, who's the director, and mentioned some things to him that I felt would be helpful for all pedestrians on the Greenway, and he's hoping to look into that. I spoke with the senior ranger on the Greenway, and I'm hoping to volunteer there. And I asked about if they needed any more volunteers, because I know, Counselor, you were saying you always like to find um, places for young people to work in the summer. And so I was looking into that, and I'll let you know if I hear anything back in terms of them needing volunteers on the Greenway that might just oversee and have a little more presence for the pedestrians that are there, and give them a little more feeling of security and um, acknowledging the situation around the city. But I guess all of us are trying to just stay aware and alert in our own corners of the city. And that's a challenge to kind of bring it all together and create um, a presentation to give to the mayor or to the city council that would make it compelling to put money toward this or that. And I'm curious, you have quite a task in front of you to figure out how to allocate these budgets to these different needs. And I'm going to be very interested to see how that all shakes out for the coming year. But thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you. And just so you know, on the council, I'm not sure how far we will get into this. It was a friendly amendment that is being floated around right now. Back in the day, we used to have red shirts, ABCD, red shirts. And what we were thinking of is how can we resuscitate that program and create opportunities for young people to enter city government at an earlier age. And also just to kind of give them some exposure to what it looks like. And I know Public Works and, the just the upkeep. I think that this is potentially a place where we could have a group of young people be pedestrian peer leaders, if you will. I mean, we don't want to put their lives at risk, but I also think that if there are ways for us to partner up with BPD and young people, and also there's the crossing guards that we know that help students during Boston Public School times. If there was a way for us to extend that to some of the areas that we've been talking about, I think all of those things are worth considering even for a pilot. I know that we've been talking about kind of like going back to we can't do it all, but what we can do, the cadet program, but specifically for streets, right? Like the police department has their cadets, the fire department has their cadets, the EMTs have their cadets. Maybe there should be a cohort for streets and transportation planning and development. Those are all things that I'm almost done. Yeah, go see how Mama's doing. Sorry, if those y'all know, I have a two family. My brother and I live on one side with our kids, and my mom lives on the other. So that's and I'm being recorded, so everybody knows now that. But anyways, the I think we were talking about the cadet programs, right? That I think that we have an opportunity to maybe allocate some of our resources around workforce development for younger adults, not teenagers, but like young people who have already graduated from high school and are not sure what types of careers they want to go into. There's an opportunity to create a pathway in urban planning. And maybe they can do a study, and maybe they can like be there to do some enforcement. And so there are lots of things that we can explore in our time together. And that's why I love having a task force, because there's so many things that we can brainstorm together. And so these are the sort of things that we'd like to hear from you all so that we can bring it back to the larger body that we are working with. So thank you for that and for that reminder. Did I freeze?
No, you're still here. Is anyone else, does anyone else want to share what they're thinking about or if they have any questions or whatever it might be is this is your time. So if anyone would like to unmute or just put something in the chat, you're free to do so.
They're like, no, it's 3 more minutes and we're done. They don't want to try to talk. I hear y'all. It's been a
Um,
long night.
I have a question. Um I seen something happen the other day that I want to bring up, but I'm not really sure where or who to contact. Like, is that something that, like, is there a directory or something that you see that you can call, or like, I guess I'm wondering, like, where do constituents call when they have a concern and they don't know where it should be directed?
311.
Okay.
And if you call 311, they will most likely know what department and who might be the best person for you to connect with regarding whatever issue is happening in that area. And if it's a health related, even if it's a health related um, or public safety, they'll know where to direct you to or connect you to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I will just end with just because I know we're gonna probably lose some folks. It's 2 minutes. Um, what we are hoping to do in, like I think I mentioned in the beginning, for the summer time, you know, I know that people usually go away. I want to be super mindful of those things. And I know that we still have May and June. Um, we were thinking that potentially, and we'll just do a poll around kind of like summer programming, and then maybe we might pick back up on the fall, or if we would to do like something in person, um, late, at some point, like in June to kick off the summer, like the first week of June, just to kind of like have a meetup in person and then give everybody the summer off and then meet up in September. Like those are things that I'm gonna have Kiara pull you on, like just to get a sense of kind of like the of engagement that you want to participate in during the summer months, because I know people have things that they're doing, but we definitely want to at least keep you all engaged throughout the budget process, because we want to make sure that we are utilizing your voice in the decision making um, process that we have. But at the very least, we were thinking to do something in person when the weather gets nicer, just because I think that is part of the relationship building. And maybe we could do it at the end of at the end of June, beginning of July. But we would pick some central place, since people are coming from all parts of the city. Somewhere in the middle, so that everybody has to commute except the people who are in the middle. Um, and maybe we'll do it at a park, or maybe we might go to one of the intersections that we've discussed. I don't know, I just feel like let's brainstorm, but I definitely want to do something as a collective, so that we can, both the short term and the long term team, could really start thinking about ways that we can build collectively on some of the things that could be short term, but there might be some systemic issues on the long term end of things that you all can collectively brainstorm together. So I just want to end with that type of brainstorming, so that you all can give a little bit of thought until we meet again. And thank you for staying on as long as you did. And thank you, Beatrix, for, you know, showing up and being the co-pilot. And Kiara, you did such a great job keeping with it. Despite all the technical difficulties, you still kept us on time and on task. So you should be really happy.
Yeah. So just to recap, Kiara will be in contact about our future meetings and everything like that. Um, the biggest action items for all of us to take home will be emailing any questions you have for anything with the budget season, to us, and then also any of the photos or videos of the dangerous intersections, or like Counselor was mentioning, like places that also concern you about public safety, like if there aren't streetlights or the streetlights are out or things like that. So those two items are the really big ones to think about and marinate on until our next meeting. But thank you all again for your patience with the technology, and we hope you all have a very good night and get some sleep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Happy holiday. Happy Passover. Happy Easter. Happy take your time to yourself weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for showing up.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.